Welcome back to The Ultimate Solution. My name's Carl Liebold, and today a very special guest, a gentleman I've enjoyed watching on YouTube immensely, particularly when he's had New South Wales policemen chasing him all over town, and every time they pull him up, they want to search his car, and he's always got something new and interesting in the car for them to find. Welcome to the show, Simeon Boikov, otherwise known as the Aussie Cossack. Mate, good to have you aboard.
Thank you, Carl. It's a pleasure to be with you today on your show.
Mate, I've been trying to get you on now for, 2 or 3 weeks. We've really only hooked up in the last couple. Yesterday, I was following your Telegram channel, very well-supported Telegram channel, and lo and behold, I discovered that you are to become a national television star. Well, at least that was the idea a Current Affair had when they pulled you up on the street. You think that's fair?
Well, yeah, Carl. I mean, look, I've been in and around the media for a while now, and my relationship with the media is a very, very lucrative relationship. I've sued them for defamation before. I've sued Australia's biggest companies. In fact, we've brought court proceedings against them for defamation. And all I can say is that I'm very happy with the results. I always get what I seek when it comes to defamation, because the media are just out of control at the moment. They, in my opinion, in fact, they've actually been given orders to attack me, and they've been given a blank checkbook. Because the attacks that I've seen lately, they have no, regard or worry for being sued for libel and defamation. It's an open game.
Well, they own the courts as well, so there's very little chance that a person like you or I is going to have any success in that realm. And of course, the big media companies pay the very best lawyers, and we all know what the very best lawyers are.
It's a David and Goliath, but I have beaten them 3 times. It's a 3 of 3, 100% strike rate, and I do intend to go after these current media agencies who are attacking me, and also individuals, who are on social media and so forth. Everything is being recorded, everything is being sorted, analysed. We've got files this big with my barristers, and when we decide to pounce, when we decide to strike, and we have 1 year because of the limitations, it's at the moment, what we're saying is we're giving the media enough rope, but they're saying give them enough rope.
Absolutely. So the media organisation that was chasing you on the street sent one of their foot-in-the-door men up to you on the street yesterday. You took complete control of the situation and filmed the whole thing yourself, which I thought was immensely clever. And then you released it to your YouTube channel almost immediately. Also very clever, because it took the wind out of anything they were able to edit out of their own footage and turned into a story for you. Was that your plan at the time, or were you just a bit incensed that they bothered to turn up and invade what is essentially a court matter you're not really allowed to talk about?
Well, let me say that over the last, 2 years, those who've been watching my YouTube channel, I've developed a sort of, you could say, a taste for these situations. And the first thing in these situations, as I always suggest to my viewers, turn your cameras on, start filming, whether it's a police encounter, whether it's a press encounter, whether you're encountering, politicians, start filming. Because once you're filming, and then you control the narrative. If, for example, if I didn't film the Current Affair, they would have just edited out a small sentence of mine to make me look like a lunatic and make themselves look like they're, very professional and, getting the great story out there.
Upholding the standards of the community,
Of course. Well, let's say there is no public interest here at all. Like what happened yesterday, Current Affair just made a disgraceful personal attack on my family and I, cornering me, basically accusing me of supporting the bombing of Ukrainians, being a Putin supporter. I said, I don't support any bombing of anyone. It's a tragedy what's happening, but there are 2 sides to every story. And we feel very strongly about this being, Australians with Russian heritage. And it's a racist attack. It's what I call political racism. They're targeting Russian children in Russian schools. They're targeting Russian businesses. Churches are getting vandalized. And of course, with my vocal position in regards to the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, they're obviously targeting me. But I think the catalyst for this latest, you could say, media hate campaign against my family and I was the revelations I made on my Telegram channel about the Doherty Institute.
Yes, well, that release was a video you put out on your channel a couple of nights ago. I got to admit, when I saw it, just blew me away. The Doherty Institute, of course, are responsible for all the modelling that goes on medically in this country, and responsible for a great deal of the consequences of things we've seen delivered to us over the last couple of years, they have accepted, well, not just information, but they've accepted biological samples from Ukrainian biolabs, which apparently didn't exist. Now, so that leads me to a question. So, Simeon, you're getting some very, very good intel. Those of us that follow you and actually believe that there is a different story to be told between the Russia-Ukraine conflict at the moment, something the mainstream media is refusing to accept or acknowledge. Now, you've been very vocal about it. You've brought up your Russian heritage. You weren't born in Russia, though, were you? I think you were born here?
Yeah, I was born in Western Sydney. I was born in Auburn and, grew up in Sydney. Look, in fact, none of my relatives were born in the Soviet Union or in Russia. We actually are white army Cossacks who left Russia when it was an empire. So we're talking about, 1917, 1918.
Yep.
And we're part of the white immigration, the anti-communist immigration. And these the Russian community, the white Russian community has been in Australia for many, many years. But of course, just as any other community here, we love Australia, and we love the fact that Australia accepts and even promotes and supports multiculturalism.
Absolutely. It's been
it's a beautiful thing. Multiculturalism formed this country.
Yeah, a core value. So my question to you then is, recently, you've taken to doing your news updates in a uniform. Firstly, what is the uniform, and why did you decide to put the uniform on?
Well, look, this isn't the first time I've worn this type of uniform. Now, this is the Cossacks uniform. We've got an organization here which has been going for many, many years.
Right.
And starting from the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, there were Cossack communities all around Australia. And in fact, at that time, the West, the Americans, the Australians, the British, they loved the fact that white Russians, white immigrants, Cossacks were forming communities, continuing their traditions, wearing, the uniforms in memory of their great-grandfathers and so forth.
Yeah.
Because it suited the narrative of the day. And don't forget, at those times during the Cold War days, the Soviets were the bad guys. And of course, the Cossacks in the immigration were staunchly pro-Tsarist, white Russian, they were, against the Reds. And therefore, the activities of Cossacks on the territory of Canada, America, Australia, Great Britain, it was not only tolerated. And in fact, there are CIA documents, declassified documents, which show that the CIA actually promoted and supported white Russian emigre organizations who had an anti-Soviet, anti-communist view. So now all of a sudden, now because Russia's become the bad guy, the Cossacks have been under attack. The uniforms I wear, obviously, and you can look closely at the patches on the uniforms, they don't say Russian military, the patches say the Cossacks. So the Cossacks were exterminated, it was a genocide carried out by the communists, and they've lived through, that period of the Soviet times, and there's been a resurgence of the Cossacks. Now, overseas in Australia, what do the Cossacks do? I'll tell you. We look after the graves and restore the graves of World War I veterans, World War II veterans at Rookwood Cemetery. We uphold memory of, Anzac Day, Victory Day. Don't forget there were many Cossacks that fought in the Anzacs, like Peter Cherban, whose grave is at Quarantine Head in Sydney. And, it's a historical cultural organization. And obviously, I wore the uniform when I was making these reports in solidarity. The Russian people are under a lot of pressure at the moment.
And I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. People were screaming, look, he's so Russian, he's wearing the uniform. And I thought, well, it's not a Russian uniform to begin with, but I couldn't identify what sort of a uniform it was. Look, I think it's an ideal way to be able to present yourself. And I've got a question without notice. Can you do that Cossack dancing thing, like squatting down, the heels kicking up the?
I can still after a few
liquid libations. A little bit.
But look, when I was younger, I was a bit better at that.
A liquid inspiration. Is that something all Cossacks have to learn?
Well, we starting from when we were kids in Sydney, we used to all go to Russian school on Saturdays and Russian dancing lessons and Russian singing lessons, Russian geography lessons, Russian history lessons. We spent our Saturdays studying Russian heritage. Meanwhile, all of our friends at school were off at the beach or in the movies. So we weren't very happy about that. And Sundays, we had to go to church. So there's our weekend dedicated to Russia, both days. Look, I have no reservations. I think I had an excellent upbringing. I think it's a beautiful thing that in Australia, all the different communities that are out there, especially in Western Sydney, are not only allowed to promote their own sort of culture, religion. That's what makes Australia great. That's why we all love Australia. That's why we all come together and makes Australia such a unique, beautiful place to live. Because there's been a quote floating around the internet that I've said that Australia is a great place to promote a foreign agenda. Well, then it's true. Well, look at all the different communities promoting their agendas.
Yeah.
You've got the Sikh community, you've got the Chinese community, you've got the Lebanese community, you've got people building mosques and synagogues and temples, and it's fantastic. And people come from overseas, they come to visit us, and you take them through Leichhardt and say, this is the Italian area. You take them through Marrickville, and there's Greek shops and Greek churches. You take them through Cabramatta, the Vietnamese, and there is nothing wrong with that. But you see, what's happening now in Australia is there is a total, hate campaign against Russians. Russians are very upset about the war. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. In fact, a lot of Russians don't call it a war. They call it an operation. They wish it's over soon. But there is a lot of misguided information and misinformation coming out from the mainstream media, and it's actually inflaming, turning people against Russia. Now, as you mentioned earlier, I have been doing a lot of work through Telegram where I can get uncensored information from the front line, from the battlegrounds over there, so Australians can read.
So how are you getting that information? I mean, without divulging sources.
No, I'm very happy to tell you. Look, I've got direct contact with people that are on the ground there and sharing information. I mean, look, this information, if the journalists in the West try hard enough, they can get their hands on it too.
Absolutely.
But they prefer not to. They prefer to spin the narrative, and they've been told the orders from above. The narrative is that Putin is the bad guy, and let's just all gang up on him. Now, because of what I'm doing, you see, Carl, the media have actually declared war on me in Australia. They've begun a campaign of character assassination. Now, as you know, weeks and weeks ago, I pulled out of the election, the federal election, to focus on this, and I made a very clear public statement, which I said that for me, what's happening in Europe at the moment, it's a 1 in 100-year event.
Yeah.
And so I won't be able to give my full focus to the people of Reid or to the federal election. But look, there are elections all the time. There's another one in February. So I've pulled out of the election to focus on journalism, independent journalism, bringing the truth to the Australian people, who, by the way, I've been defending for the last 2 years. I've been defending hardworking Australians. I've been defending their freedoms. I've been defending Western Sydney in particular against all of these, disastrous measures, these lockdowns, these mandates, and so forth. Now, I'm no exception.
Let's just touch on that for a moment. You haven't just been defending; you've been putting your money where your mouth is. So, to anybody who thinks for a moment that the Russian embassy is funding you, handing out little brown bags full of money out the back door of the embassy every week to you, absolute crap. You've spent, well, not thousands, you've spent tens of thousands of your own dollars promoting our Australian values, trying to get some justice for what's going on in the world. You, of course, come from a construction industry background. Your businesses have been involved in the construction industry, I imagine, for the last 25, 30 years or more. I think labour hire is part of your business, isn't it? Making sure that blokes are on site. So your businesses have been smacked senseless between, the last 2 years, 2.5 years, and the restrictions that have been placed upon us. Those of us that have a mortgage may have received some respite from the banks and, your $4,000 a month mortgage or however much you pay. But if you owned a business, your business loan wasn't put down, was it? You might have $40,000 or $50,000 a month to pay on that, and you still had to find that money.
Look, millions of Australians over the last 2 years have been doing it tough. There are thousands and thousands of stories of Australian families, Australian businesses, like you mentioned, particularly in the construction industry, the hospitality industry, and industries that were, on the receiving end of these ridiculous lockdowns and mandates.
Tourism, yeah.
Now that it's all over, and we all realise it's just a flu. I had it in December. 2 days we had a sniffle or had a cough, and then it was back to normal. And I thought to myself, is this really what it was all about? Is this really what we sacrificed? How many suicides? How many broken families? How many mortgages in distress? And now you nailed it right there. Look, during the last 2 years, my company, my business was no exception. We were all doing it hard, we're doing it tough, and we had to do what we could to stay afloat, to stay in the game, and so forth. And we didn't want these lockdowns. We didn't want our industries to be cracked down on and closed. We were literally stopped from going to work. Our workers were stopped from going to work. Now I have to continue paying the workers. I have to continue providing for the workers, trying to do my best for them. I've had thousands and thousands of employees and they can only say good things about me. And I've always been, gone out of my way to help the employees. Now, unfortunately, the government has no regard, and the media, for that matter, the mainstream media has no regard for the Aussie battler out there.
No.
Now, what they're doing to me now is digging up, old sort of old commercial disputes. Like you said, it's a commercial facility, and trying to say that, oh, look, he missed a payment here, or there was a dispute with a commercial facility involving a family member, targeting my grandmother. It's disgusting that they would go after my grandmother, even targeting my wife, cornering me. That's Stephen Marshall, that grub of a reporter from Current Affairs, who cornered me and just pestering me, saying, pay your bills, pay your bills. Why doesn't Stephen Marshall from Current Affairs corner Gladys Berejiklian? Gladys Berejiklian, who ruined the economy, who destroyed the construction industry, who put thousands and thousands of businesses and millions of Australians on their knees to the brink of financial collapse, bankruptcy, suicide, divorce, broken homes, homelessness, terrible. But where's Gladys now? She conveniently exited politics and now is enjoying a cushy, high-paying executive role at Optus, just like John Barilaro, who's now working in a multi-billion-dollar development company. He's got himself a cushy role there. All of these grubby politicians who are really to blame for the financial hardships of everyday Australians have got off scot-free. And what is a disgrace is that Channel 9, Stephen Marshall, from the Current Affair program, and people like Candace Sutton from the Daily Mail, these people are gutless. Rather than go after the politicians, they target everyday hardworking Australians. How dare they come and corner me at my house? Or how dare they come and corner my poor grandmother at her house? How dare they go through private commercial cases before the courts in dispute and make assumptions and throw out accusations, which are absolutely false and not supported by any facts. Well, and this is the reality of the media at the moment.
You mentioned Mrs. Cossack there. Now, Mrs. Cossack was beside you while all this happened with the Current Affair yesterday, I'm gathering, because I saw him refer to her at one point, just after he'd said, oh, what about the AVO that you've got against your wife? Now, I'd be surprised if my wife, and I don't have one, but I'd be surprised if my wife had taken out an AVO against me, that she would be in the car with me when I was being accosted or ambushed by the media. This just doesn't ring true to me. So can you explain that AVO? Because I've heard a story that the police generated this AVO out of thin air, out of no complaint, and just leveled it. Is that true?
Look, as we all know, if you've been watching the Aussie Cossack YouTube channel, the police have been on a campaign against me for a few years. And look, in one way, you could say I've brought it upon myself. I'm an Aussie larrikin. I'm out there. I'm fighting for the people's freedoms, organising rallies. And like you mentioned earlier, I do. I pay for the stages. I pay for the sound systems. A massive stage like they have at the rallies, it's $7,000-8,000. Sound system, $6,000-7,000. Feeding the people. Organising things. Journalists, camera crews. I'm happy to do that because my heart was in the right place because I was suffering. I was suffering as a construction industry, director, from these mandates, from these lockdowns. And I thought I was taking this very seriously, and I still do take this seriously. Now, the police targeted me for that. They and all of those interactions with police are on the YouTube channel Aussie Cossack. Now, my wife, you could say, is the Achilles heel of every man. Is the women, the families, and the police see that going after me personally just backfires on them. Now this AVO that's been placed, between my wife and I, it's not from my wife. It's from the police. They did a door-knocking campaign. Listen to this: a door-knocking canvas campaign through our building at Breakfast Point, beautiful suburb. Went through every single level, went through every single apartment building, and in the brief of evidence, it's got unit number unit number this, unit number that, and it's got what the people said when they opened the door.
Wow. So
everyone opened the door. They said, we didn't hear anything. One person said they heard someone arguing. So this is where the police built their case. My wife said, I don't want to make a statement. I have no complaints. There is no problems. I don't need an AVO. And she's put that in writing. She's told them that. The police are continuing to pursue it because it's a harassment situation. It's their way of getting me onto the ropes. And it's no coincidence that the Daily Mail is reporting on this. Because obviously the police are feeding them information and they're all working together. It's called big media and the government and the police trying to take down, trying to squash me, trying to demoralize me. And you know, they wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't a threat to them. It's the problem is my journalism, my independent journalism, which brings out the truth, just like you, Carl.
And your following. I mean, you've got a considerable following. Nothing. I mean, I've got no following compared to you. I'm grateful that you ordained. I bow down to come on.
Glory to God.
But you've got a following that you've generated over the last few years, and what's more, they are very passionate. If any of them feel the same way that I do, if we saw you stopped on the side of the street, we'd be stopping to help you too. And if we saw others like you being stopped on the street, you know, we want you to know that you have support, and that support is that Aussie support. Give everybody a fair go, mate.
Yes.
And you certainly haven't been getting a fair go. I mean, just going out to get milk for you must have been an adventure. For people who haven't seen Aussie Cossack's brilliant channel and the things that he does with the police, so they took out a firearm protection order against you, not because you had firearms or needed protecting from them, but it gave them the right every time they pulled you over. In fact, not necessarily the right; it was a demand that they would search your vehicle tip to toe every time they stopped you. Is that right?
Absolutely. Look, I believe that I've had every single order possibly that I have FPOs, AVOs, PSOs. You know, some of these things people haven't ever heard of.
Yeah, right.
But I've had them all, and I've been thrown around. The police really love to attack me. I mean, look, by the way, there are some good police out there, I have to say. There are police that actually walk up to me quietly and say, Simeon, continue what you're doing. We back you all the way. You know, there are honest coppers out there. And if you're watching, you know, I appreciate it. And to everyone out there watching who's listening to this interview, you know, look, I appreciate the support. The more Daily Telegraph, Candace Sutton, Daily Mail, John Marshall, what his name is, Marshall.
Stephen Marshall, yep.
Stephen Marshall from the bloody Current Affair. The more they attack, the more the resolve increases. I mean, and this is where the mainstream media are actually getting it wrong. Now, let's look at Trump, for example. How much did they trash Trump? They called him a Russian agent, a Russian spy, collusion. There's this. He was bankrupt in, you know, the 1990s. There was this, Trump Tower, that, Melania Trump this, and how many hit pieces? Yep. And look, here he is. He's going to become the next president of the United States because he's managed to hold the line and stand firm. And I can guarantee to all the people listening and all my viewers out there and the supporters, Carl, that I have no intention of stopping. You know, the Current Affair will come out with a program tonight. And they'll trash me and they'll make me look like a bad person. And they'll say, he induced his grandmother into business. He had a facility with her. He's a wife beater. He's a bad person. He's Russian agent. He's a Russian spy. He's Putin's #1 man at Oz. He's, you know, the Australian Vladimir Putin proxy paramilitary army. And they'll say all of this. At the end of the day, the people will watch that. They'll Google me. They'll go onto YouTube and they'll click subscribe and they'll say, bloody hell, I want to check the Aussie Cossack out. And when they see who I really am, they'll be, you know, happy to support me. And that's where it comes down to. And that's why they're going after me. That's why they're doing a campaign of character assassination, because I have a following. I can influence the masses because I speak from the masses. I speak to people on the street. When's the last time Current Affair walked through a protest, a freedom protest, and actually had a mic and just walked up to everyday mums and dads and firefighters and doctors and nurses and teachers? You know why they don't do it? Because they would be lynched. You know, in a non-violent way, I want to underline, but they would be berated. The mainstream media are absolutely...
evidence of that in Canberra at the first rally. I saw reporting of Channel 7 while they were sort of doing their wrap-up of the report, and there was a chant of tell the truth coming from behind them, and Channel 7 tried to spin that as that was being yelled at the politicians. It wasn't. It was being yelled at the mainstream media to tell the truth. But yeah, that's just the way the mainstream media spins things. Mate, I know you've got another appointment you've got to head off to. I really thank you for taking the time this afternoon at late notice to sit down and have a bit of a yak. I really hope you'll come back on the show regularly. Give us a bit of an update of what's going on. And of course, people can find you on YouTube under the Aussie Cossack. And of course, your Telegram channel. Do you want to give that one out?
Definitely. Telegram, Aussie Cossack. We'll put the links in the description. If you want to really get some news that the government is trying to censor and stop, jump on Telegram. Thank God for Telegram, because this stuff you can't put anywhere. Not Facebook, not Instagram, not the mainstream media. The stuff on Telegram, including exposing documents from the Doherty Institute, the links to the biolabs, it's all there for the people. Look, I'm getting targeted because I'm bringing the people the information. And guys, I can tell you, I have no intention of stopping. Thank you for your support. I love how the mainstream media attacks me and the people just write it off and say fake news, because that's exactly what it is. and I condemn the despicable attacks on my family, on my grandmother, on my wife, on my heritage, on my personal character. And thank you to all the good Australians out there, who have been shoulder to shoulder in the freedom movement, shoulder to shoulder now. What's happening with international politics? Thank you, guys. I really. You inspire me, and the reason I won't stop is because I feel the support of the masses. And thank you, Carl, for taking this interview today, and definitely will be looking forward to coming back on the show.
That's great news. I'll look forward to it immensely. And I feel exactly the same way. I wouldn't be here without the support of the people after what happened with me on that other network. I wouldn't.
Yeah, Carl, I know what happened to you. You spoke up for it's not for one on the other side. It's just giving a balanced view. You voiced an alternative narrative to the mainstream narrative, and you were persecuted and also repressed for that position. It's a very sad state of affairs that in 2022 in Australia, in the free country, the lucky country, freedom of speech is no longer free.
Ain't that the truth, mate? I'll let you go. I know you have a very important person to go and pick up, so we'll do that. Thank you very much for joining The Ultimate Solution today. Simeon Boikov, the Aussie Cossack.
Thanks, Carl.